The forest was alive with the sounds of death. Ilara's lungs burned as she crashed through the undergrowth, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. Behind her, she could hear the snarls of the pack guards who had been chasing her since her escape from the dungeon. Her best friend Lyra had risked everything to free her, and now Ilara was running for her life, accused of a crime she didn't commit, poisoning the new Luna. The irony wasn't lost on her. Kara, the woman who had stolen her mate, her life, her future, now claimed Ilara had tried to kill her. And tomorrow, they had planned to execute her for it. A guard's howl pierced the night, closer than before. Ilara pushed herself harder, her bare feet bleeding on the forest floor. She had no wolf to call upon, no supernatural strength to aid her escape. She was just a broken woman running from her fate. Then the air changed. The guard's pursuit sounds shifted from determination to alarm. Ilara risked a glance over her shoulder and saw shadows moving through the trees fast, deadly, inhuman. Rogues. A dozen of them, their eyes glowing with feral hunger as they descended upon the pack guards. The screams started immediately. Ilara stumbled to a halt, watching in horror as the rogues tore through Darius's men with savage efficiency. Blood sprayed across the moonlit forest floor. Bodies fell. And then the rogues turned their attention to her. She backed away slowly, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. There was nowhere to run. The rogues circled her like wolves around wounded prey, their lips pulled back to reveal razor-sharp teeth. One of them lunged. Ilara closed her eyes, waiting for the end. It never came. A roar erupted through the forest, not the howl of a wolf, but something deeper, more primal, more terrifying than anything Ilara had ever heard. The ground itself seemed to tremble beneath the force of it. When she opened her eyes, she saw him. A massive black Lycan stood between her and the rogues, easily twice the size of any wolf she'd ever seen. His fur was midnight black, rippling with muscle and power. His eyes glowed silver in the darkness, ancient and fierce. The rogues that had been so confident moments before now whimpered and retreated, but the Lycan gave them no mercy. He moved with lethal grace, each strike calculated and devastating. Within seconds, the rogues lay dead or dying around them, and the forest fell silent once more. Ilara should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to flee while this creature was distracted. But she couldn't move. She was frozen, mesmerized and terrified in equal measure as the Lycan turned to face her. He took a step closer, and she saw him shift, his massive form condensing, reshaping until a man stood before her. A man who looked like he'd been carved from stone and shadow, with silver eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. Those eyes widened as they locked onto her face. The man froze mid-step, his expression shifting from predatory focus to something Ilara couldn't quite name. Shock. Recognition. Grief. "Elena," he breathed, his voice rough with emotion. Ilara shook her head, confused. "No, I'm Elena." He said it again, more certain this time, moving toward her with purpose. "How is this possible? You died. 300 years ago, I held your body in my arms. I watched you die." "I don't know what you're talking about," Ilara managed, even as exhaustion and blood loss from her escape began to catch up with her. The world tilted dangerously. "My name is Ilara." "I'm not." But the man was already reaching for her, his hands surprisingly gentle as they caught her before she could fall. Up close, she could see the pain in his eyes, the desperate hope warring with disbelief. "Elena," he whispered once more, and then Ilara's vision went dark. She felt him lift her into his arms as consciousness slipped away, felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek. And in that moment before the darkness claimed her completely, she could have sworn she felt something, a pull, a connection, a thread of something ancient and powerful binding her to this stranger who called her by a dead woman's name. When Ilara's eyes finally fluttered open, she wasn't in the forest anymore. She found herself in a massive bed, surrounded by silk sheets in deep shades of midnight blue and silver. The room around her was unlike anything she'd ever seen, carved stone walls adorned with ancient tapestries, tall windows that let in streams of moonlight, furniture that looked both elegant and impossibly old. This wasn't the Crescent Moon pack. This wasn't anywhere she recognized. Elara sat up slowly, her body aching but surprisingly healed. The cuts and bruises from her escape should have taken days to mend, yet her skin was smooth, unblemished. Someone had changed her clothes too. She now wore a simple but beautiful dress in pale gray, soft as cloud against her skin. "You're awake." She jumped at the voice, her eyes snapping to the doorway where the man from the forest stood watching her. In the light, he was even more imposing, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his shoulders and those unsettling silver eyes that seemed to glow with their own inner light. "Where am I?" Elara demanded, pulling the sheets closer around herself despite being fully clothed. "Who are you? And why do you keep calling me Elena?" The man stepped into the room, moving with the careful grace of a predator trying not to spook his prey. "You're in the Lycan kingdom. You're safe here. As for who I am..." He paused, studying her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I am Ronan Bloodmoon, king of the Lycans. And you are the exact image of my mate, Elena, who was murdered 3 centuries ago." Elara's mind reeled. Lycans. She'd heard stories, of course, ancient creatures more powerful than any werewolf, living far longer, ruling their own territories separate from the wolf packs. But they were supposed to be myths, legends told to pups to make them behave. Yet here she was, in a Lycan's castle, saved by a Lycan king who thought she was his dead mate reborn. "I'm not Elena," she said firmly, though her voice shook. "I'm Elara. I'm from the Crescent Moon pack." She stopped, the memories flooding back. The accusation. The dungeon. The execution order. I was running for my life. Ronan's expression darkened. From what? It doesn't matter now. Elara looked away, not wanting to see pity in those ancient eyes. "I can't go back. They think I poisoned someone. They were going to kill me." "Then you'll stay here," Ronan said simply, as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. "You're under my protection now. I don't need. You nearly died in that forest." His voice held an edge of command that made her words die in her throat. "The rogues would have torn you apart if I hadn't arrived. And whatever pack you came from, they're clearly not safe for you. So yes, Elara, you do need my protection. Whether you want it or not." They stared at each other for a long moment, and Elara felt it again, that strange pull, like an invisible cord connecting her heart to his. It made no sense. She'd just escaped one mate bond gone horribly wrong. She wasn't looking for another, especially not with a Lycan king who looked at her like she was a ghost come back to haunt him. "I don't remember anything," she admitted quietly. "From before the forest. It's all blank. Fuzzy. The only clear memory I have is you saving me." Ronan's expression shifted, concern replacing the intensity. "Amnesia. That's not uncommon after trauma. Your memories may return with time." But even as he said it, Elara wasn't sure she wanted them to. What she could remember, the pain of rejection, the humiliation, the betrayal, was already too much to bear. Maybe forgetting was a mercy. Still, something nagged at her. A feeling that she was supposed to remember something important. Something crucial. She was about to ask Ronan more questions when it hit her, a vision, sudden and overwhelming, crashing through her mind like a tidal wave. She saw herself, but not herself. A woman who looked exactly like her, dressed in ancient clothing, standing in a great hall. And beside her, Ronan, younger somehow, though he looked the same, his hand clasped in hers as they faced a crowd of Lycans. She could feel the love between them, powerful and all-consuming, could hear them pledge their lives to each other under a blood moon. Then the vision shifted, darkened. Battle. Blood. Screaming. The woman, Elena, falling as shadowy figures closed in around her. Ronan's anguished roar as he fought to reach her, too late, always too late. Elara gasped, her eyes snapping open to find herself back in the bedroom, Ronan's hands on her shoulders, his face close to hers, filled with worry. "What did you see?" he demanded. "Your eyes, they glowed silver." "What did you see?" She was trembling, she realized. The vision had felt so real, so visceral, like she'd actually lived it. I saw a ceremony, a bonding, and then a battle. Death. She met his gaze, her heart pounding. But I didn't see faces clearly. I don't know who they were. It was a lie. She had seen the faces perfectly. She'd seen Elena and Ronan, seen their love and their tragedy played out in vivid detail. But something made her hold back that truth, some instinct warning her that admitting she'd seen his dead mate's memories would complicate everything even more. Ronan studied her for a long moment, and she had the unsettling feeling he knew she wasn't telling him everything. But he didn't press. Instead, he stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "Come with me," he said. "There's something you need to see." He led her through corridors that seemed to go on forever, past Lycan guards who bowed their heads respectfully as their king passed. Elara felt their eyes on her, felt their curiosity and confusion. They saw it too, whatever resemblance she bore to their lost queen. Finally, Ronan stopped before a set of ornate double doors. He pushed them open, revealing a room that took Elara's breath away. It was a memorial chamber, she realized. Every surface was covered with paintings, portraits, tapestries, all depicting the same woman. A woman with Elara's face, her eyes, her smile. The resemblance was so exact it made her dizzy. "This is Elena," Ronan said quietly, watching Elara's reaction. "My mate. My queen. The love of my life." Elara moved closer to one of the portraits, her hand reaching out to trace the painted face that could have been her own reflection. Same high cheekbones. Same curve of lips. Even the same small mole just above the left eyebrow. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "I don't know." Ronan's voice was raw with emotion. "Reincarnation is rare among our kind, but not impossible. The moon goddess works in mysterious ways. Perhaps she's given you back to me. Perhaps this is a second chance." Elara turned to face him, saw the hope and fear warring in his expression. This man, this king, had loved Elena for 300 years, had mourned her for 3 centuries. And now he looked at Elara like she was the answer to prayers he'd stopped believing would be answered. But she wasn't Elena. She was Elara, broken, betrayed, still bleeding from wounds inflicted by her own mate. She didn't know if she had anything left to give. Before she could voice any of this, a sound shattered the moment, a roar, deep and threatening, coming from outside the castle. Ronan's entire body tensed. He moved to the window in one fluid motion, looking out over his kingdom. Elara followed, peering past his shoulder to see what had alarmed him. The sight made her blood run cold. An army stood at the castle gates. Dark wolves, dozens of them, their eyes glowing red in the darkness. And at their head stood figures cloaked in shadow, radiating power that made the air itself feel thick and poisonous. "What's happening?" Elara asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Ronan's expression was grim as he turned to her. "The ones who killed Elena in her past life. They've found you. They've come to finish what they started 300 years ago." Elara felt another vision slam into her, stronger this time. She saw herself, Elena, fighting alongside Ronan against these same dark wolves. Saw them overwhelmed, separated. Saw the moment when shadowy claws tore through Elena's chest, stealing her life, her light, everything. When the vision released her, she was shaking violently. "They killed her," she breathed. "They killed Elena." "Yes." Ronan's hands were gentle on her arms, steadying her. "But I won't let them kill you. Not again. Never again." He started toward the door, clearly intending to face the army alone, but Elara grabbed his arm. "Wait. In the vision, I saw you fighting them. You couldn't save her because you were separated. Don't make the same mistake." Ronan looked at her, surprise and something else flickering in his eyes. "You remember the battle? I saw it. Just now." She took a shaky breath. "I don't understand what's happening to me, but I know this. If you go out there alone, history will repeat itself. Let me help. You have no wolf. No powers. I can't risk you." "Then teach me," Elara insisted. "Or keep me close. But don't leave me here wondering if you'll come back." For a moment, she thought he would refuse. But then Ronan nodded slowly, and she saw the decision settle over him like armor. "Stay behind me. Do exactly as I say. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood. Understood. They moved through the castle together, Ronan barking orders to his guards as they went. Lycans mobilized with impressive speed, forming defensive positions, preparing for battle. Elara felt useless among them, just a human woman with no powers, no wolf, no way to contribute. But as they reached the main hall, Ronan paused. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. There's something you should know. The mate bond between us, it's there. I can feel it, even if you can't yet. Elena was my fated mate, and somehow, impossibly, you're too. That connection might manifest in ways neither of us expect. If it does, don't fight it. Let it guide you. Before Elara could respond, another roar shook the castle. They were out of time. Ronan led her to the castle's back entrance, a tactical position where he could both engage the enemy and keep her protected. Through the doorway, Elara could see the dark wolves advancing, their numbers seemingly endless. And then she saw him, one wolf, larger than the others, breaking away from the pack and heading straight for their position. His eyes burned with hatred and recognition as they locked onto Elara. Ronan moved to intercept, shifting mid-stride into his massive Lycan form. The two creatures collided with bone-jarring force, and the battle began in earnest. Elara pressed herself against the wall, her heart in her throat as she watched Ronan fight. He was magnificent and terrifying, every movement precise and deadly. But the dark wolf was strong too, enhanced by some kind of dark magic that made his attacks unpredictable. They were evenly matched, and Elara realized with growing horror that Ronan might not win this. Then it happened again, another vision, but this time her eyes stayed open. She saw herself, Elena, glowing with silver light, her hands outstretched as power flowed from her. She saw that same power strike the dark wolves, sending them fleeing in terror. The vision faded, but the knowledge remained. Elena had power. Lunar magic, gift from the moon goddess herself. And if Elara was truly her reincarnation. She looked down at her hands and willed them to glow. Nothing happened. She tried again, reaching for something, anything inside herself that might respond. Still nothing. Ronan roared in pain, and Elara's head snapped up to see the dark wolf's claws rake across his side. Blood sprayed across the stone floor. The wolf pressed his advantage, driving Ronan back, going for his throat. No. The word tore from Elara's throat, desperate and raw. And something inside her answered. Light exploded from her hands, brilliant silver white, so bright it turned night into day. The dark wolf yelped and scrambled back, shielding his eyes. All across the battlefield, the other dark wolves began to retreat, whimpering and howling as the light touched them. Elara stared at her glowing hands in shock. The power thrummed through her veins, ancient and familiar, like coming home after a long journey. She didn't understand it, didn't know how to control it, but in that moment, it didn't matter. The dark wolves were fleeing. Ronan shifted back to human form, his hand pressed against his wounded side, his eyes wide as he looked at her. Elena, he breathed. Elara, she corrected automatically, but her voice was uncertain. Because in that moment, channeling that power, she'd felt like someone else. Someone older. Someone who had wielded this magic before. The battle was over as quickly as it had begun. The dark wolves disappeared into the forest, their attack broken by Elara's unexpected display of power. Ronan's guards cheered, but Elara barely heard them. She sank to her knees, the light fading from her hands, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. Ronan was there immediately, catching her before she could collapse completely. "What was that?" she whispered. "What am I?" Ronan's expression was a mixture of awe and pain. "You're Elena. Somehow, impossibly, you're her. Reborn. Return to me." He pulled her closer, his voice breaking. "I don't know whether to thank the moon goddess or curse her for bringing you back into danger." Elara wanted to argue, to insist again that she was just Elara, nobody special, nobody important. But the power still hummed beneath her skin, and the visions still echoed in her mind, and she couldn't deny the truth any longer. She was Elena. Or at least, she had been in another life. And that life had ended in blood and betrayal. I need to know, she said, looking up at Ronan. I need to know everything. Who I was. What happened. Why they want me dead. Ronan nodded slowly. Then come with me. It's time you learn the truth about who you really are. He helped her to her feet and led her back through the castle, past celebrating guards and curious onlookers, until they reached his personal chambers. The room was massive, dominated by a bed that could easily sleep four and walls lined with ancient books and weapons. Ronan gestured for her to sit, then began to pace, clearly gathering his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with centuries of grief. Elena was the daughter of the moon goddess's high priestess. She was born with lunar magic, the ability to heal, to purify, to channel the goddess's power. She was the light to my darkness, the balance that kept our kingdom strong. And she was my fated mate, the other half of my soul. He paused, his jaw clenching. We were married for 50 years. 50 years of peace and happiness. And then the shadow wolves came. Shadow wolves. Dark creatures, corrupted by forbidden magic. They sought to destroy everything the moon goddess stood for: light, life, balance. And they knew that killing Elena would break me, would plunge the kingdom into chaos. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. They succeeded. I couldn't save her. I held her as she died, felt our bond shatter, and in that moment, I wanted to die too. Ilara's heart ached for him, for the pain he'd carried for so long. But you didn't die. No. I lived. I hunted down every shadow wolf I could find, destroyed them, scattered their remnants across the realms. I thought I'd eliminated the threat. He looked at her, his eyes haunted. But tonight proved me wrong. They're back. And they still want you dead. Why? If Elena's been gone for 300 years, why come back now? Because you're not just Elena reborn, Ronan said. The visions you're having, the power you just displayed, you're awakening. Remembering. And when you fully remember who you were, when you fully reclaim your power, you'll be a threat to them again. Perhaps an even greater threat than before. Ilara's mind was spinning. This was too much, too fast. Just days ago, her biggest problem had been a mate who'd rejected her. Now she was apparently the reincarnation of a powerful priestess, destined to fight against dark forces she didn't understand. I don't want this, she whispered. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. Ronan knelt before her, taking her hands in his. And if I could spare you from it, I would. But the goddess has plans none of us can escape. All I can promise is that I will protect you with everything I am. I failed Elena. I won't fail you. She looked at their joined hands, felt the mate bond pulse between them, faint but growing stronger. It should have terrified her. After Darius, after the pain of rejection and betrayal, she should have wanted nothing to do with another mate bond. But this felt different. Ronan looked at her with devotion tempered by respect, with passion balanced by patience. He wasn't demanding her love or her loyalty. He was offering his. I need time, she said finally. Time to remember. Time to understand what I am. Time to figure out if I'm ready for any of this. Then take it, Ronan said simply. You're safe here. No one will harm you in my kingdom. And when you're ready, if you're ready, we'll face whatever comes together. He stood, moving toward the door to give her privacy, but Ilara caught his hand. Stay, she said, surprising herself. Just stay. I don't want to be alone tonight. Something softened in Ronan's expression. He nodded and settled into a chair near the fireplace, giving her space, but remaining close enough that she could feel his protective presence. As Ilara lay back on the massive bed, exhaustion finally claiming her, her last thought was that maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found somewhere she belonged. But peace never lasted long. Over the following days, Ronan became her guide through the fragmented pieces of her past. He would take her to different parts of the castle, the gardens where Elena had grown healing herbs, the temple where she'd performed ceremonies, the library filled with ancient texts about lunar magic. With each location, more memory surfaced. Not fully formed, not complete, but fragments. Flashes of laughter in the gardens. The smell of incense in the temple. The feel of parchment under her fingers as she'd studied spells centuries ago. And always, always, there was Ronan. In every memory, he was there, protective, devoted, looking at her then the same way he looked at her now. The mate bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Alara could feel it thrumming under her skin, pulling her toward him whenever they were in the same room. She caught herself seeking him out, finding comfort in his presence, feeling safe in a way she'd never felt with Darius. But she was afraid. Afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of losing herself in another bond. Afraid of what it would mean if she truly was Elena returned. One evening, as they shared dinner in his chambers, Ronan told her more stories of their life together. How Elena had made him laugh when he was too serious. How she'd challenged him when he was too proud. How she'd been his equal in every way that mattered. "You're doing it again," Alara said softly, setting down her wine glass. "Doing what?" "Looking at me like I'm her. Like I'm Elena." She met his gaze steadily. "I may have her face, her memories, even her power. But I'm also Alara. I've lived a different life, made different choices, been shaped by different pain. I need you to see me, not just the ghost of who I used to be." Ronan was quiet for a long moment, and Alara worried she'd offended him. But then he nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry. It's hard to separate the two when everything about you reminds me of what I lost. But you deserve to be seen for who you are now, not just who you were." He reached across the table, his hand open in invitation. "So tell me about Alara. Help me know you, not just remember Elena." Something tight in Alara's chest loosened. She placed her hand in his, and for the first time since arriving at the Lycan kingdom, she told him everything. About growing up in the Crescent Moon Pack. About falling in love with Darius. About sacrificing her wolf to save him from a curse, losing their child in the process. About the rejection, the humiliation, the false accusation that had nearly cost her life. Ronan's expression grew darker with each revelation, his grip on her hand tightening. "He rejected you after you saved his life? After you gave up everything for him? He called me wolfless. Barren. Unfit to be his Luna." The words still stung, even now. "He chose Kara instead and branded me with his rejection in front of the entire pack." "Then he's a fool," Ronan said fiercely. "You are worth more than 1,000 Karas, more than any wolf who can't see your strength, your sacrifice, your courage." Tears pricked at Alara's eyes. She'd needed to hear those words more than she'd realized. "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands still joined across the table. Alara felt the mate bond pulse warmly between them, felt something shift and settle into place. This wasn't just Elena and Ronan's bond, it was theirs, Alara and Ronan's, forged through honesty and understanding. "I think I'm ready," she said suddenly. "Ready for what?" "To remember everything. To face whatever's coming. To stop running from who I was and figure out who I'm meant to be." She took a deep breath. "Help me, Ronan. Help me remember." He stood, pulling her to her feet. "There's a ritual. Something Elena and I used to do when we needed to strengthen our bond, to share memories and power. It's intimate, powerful. Are you certain you want to do this?" Alara nodded. She was tired of being afraid. Tired of feeling broken and incomplete. If she was going to face the shadow wolves, if she was going to reclaim her power, she needed to be whole. Ronan led her to the center of his chambers, where moonlight streamed through the tall windows. He guided her to sit facing him, their knees touching, hands clasped between them. "Close your eyes," he instructed softly. "Open your mind to me. Let down your walls." Alara did as he asked, taking slow, deep breaths, feeling the mate bond expand between them. It started as a trickle, images, emotions, sensations flowing from Ronan to her. Memories of Elena, but also memories of them together, of their love, their bond, their life. She saw their first meeting when Elena had been just 20 and Ronan already a king of 200 years. Saw how he'd been captivated by her light, her laughter, her fierce spirit. Saw their courtship, their bonding ceremony under a blood moon, their wedding night when they'd pledged their souls to each other for eternity. She saw their years together. The battles they'd fought side by side. The quiet moments of peace. The way they'd balanced each other, darkness and light, strength and compassion, creating something greater than either could be alone. And then she saw the end. Saw the shadow wolves attack during a festival when everyone was vulnerable, distracted. Saw Elena fighting valiantly, her lunar magic burning bright. Saw the moment when she was separated from Ronan, surrounded, overwhelmed. Saw the dark claws pierce her heart. Felt her death as if it were happening now, the agony and the terror and the desperate regret that she was leaving Ronan alone. Elara gasped, her eyes flying open, tears streaming down her face. I remember everything. Ronan pulled her into his arms, holding her as she sobbed for a life lost, for love cut short, for 300 years of separation. He stroked her hair, murmuring words of comfort, his own tears dampening her shoulder. When the storm of emotion finally passed, Elara pulled back to look at him. I was so afraid, she whispered. At the end, I was so afraid of leaving you alone. I know. I felt it through our bond, even as it broke. Ronan cupped her face gently. I've been alone for so long, Elena. Elara. Whoever you are, whatever you choose to call yourself, you're here now. We have a second chance. The goddess has given us a gift I never thought possible. The mate bond thrummed between them, stronger than ever now that her memories had returned. Elara could feel everything Ronan felt, his love, his devotion, his desperate hope that she wouldn't leave him again. And she could feel her own feelings, a complex tangle of Elena's remembered love and Elara's growing affection, weaving together into something new, something uniquely theirs. I'm afraid, she admitted. Afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of not being enough. You are more than enough, Ronan said fiercely. You always have been. And I can't promise you won't be hurt, I can't promise we won't face danger or that our enemies won't try to separate us again. But I can promise that I will fight for you, for us, with everything I am. I can promise that I will never reject you, never betray you, never make you question your worth. It was everything Darius should have said and never did. Everything Elara had needed to hear. She leaned forward and kissed him. The mate bond exploded between them, 50 years of remembered love combining with new passion, old devotion mixing with fresh desire. Ronan responded instantly, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss, pouring 3 centuries of loneliness and longing into the connection between them. They moved together, tumbling onto the bed, hands exploring, rediscovering. Elara felt both familiar and new in his arms. Elena's memories guided her, but Elara's heart made the choice. This wasn't just completing an old bond. This was forging a new one. When they finally came together, when the mate bond sealed completely between them, Elara felt her power surge. Lunar magic flooded through her veins, no longer dormant or fragmented, but whole and blazing. She glowed with silver light, and Ronan's eyes reflected that light back at her, his own Lycan power rising to meet hers. 2 halves of a whole, reunited at last. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the moonlight, Elara traced patterns on Ronan's chest, her mind clear and calm for the first time in what felt like forever. I love you, she said softly. Elena loved you, and now Elara loves you too. I don't know if that makes sense, but... It makes perfect sense, Ronan interrupted, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You are both and neither. You are yourself, unique and perfect. And I love you, all of you, past and present, Elena and Elara and whoever you choose to become. Elara smiled, feeling truly at peace for the first time since her world had fallen apart in the Crescent Moon Pack. This was where she belonged. This was home. But the peace shattered with a scream from outside the castle. Ronan was on his feet instantly, throwing on clothes, his expression shifting from tender lover to warrior king in a heartbeat. Elara scrambled up as well, pulling on a robe, her newly awakened powers crackling at her fingertips. They rushed to the window and saw chaos below. Guards running, weapons drawn. And at the castle gates, a figure being dragged forward by 2 of Ronan's soldiers. A figure Elara recognized. Lyra, she breathed. Her best friend, the one who had helped her escape the dungeon, who had risked everything to save her, was here. In the Lycan kingdom. Being arrested. I have to go down there, Alara said, already moving toward the door. Ronan caught her arm. Wait. How did she find you? How did she even get past our borders? I don't know, but she's my friend. She saved my life. I have to help her. They descended to the main hall where the guards had brought Lyra. She looked exhausted, her clothes torn and dirty, her face bruised. But when she saw Alara, relief flooded her features. Alara, thank the goddess. I've been searching everywhere for you. Release her, Alara commanded, and the guards looked to Ronan for confirmation. He nodded, and they let Lyra go. Lyra rushed forward, embracing Alara tightly. I was so worried. After you escaped, I didn't know if you'd survived. I had to find you, had to make sure you were safe. I'm safe, Alara assured her. Ronan saved me. I'm safe here. But something in Lyra's expression made Alara pause. Her friend's eyes were darting around the hall, taking in everything, the guards, the layout, Ronan's protective stance beside Alara. Lyra, how did you find me? I tracked your scent. It wasn't easy, but I managed. Lyra's grip on Alara's arms tightened. But that's not important. What's important is why I came. It's about Darius. At the mention of her former mate's name, Alara stiffened. What about him? He's cursed again. Worse than before. Lyra's voice was urgent, her eyes pleading. The curse that you healed before, it's come back, but stronger. Kara's doing, I think. She's been using dark magic on him, twisting his mind. He didn't reject you by choice, Alara. He was spelled to hate you, to push you away. The words hit Alara like a physical blow. What? No, that's not. He rejected me because I was wolfless, because Kara made him, Lyra insisted. I've been investigating since you left. I found evidence in her chambers, spell components, ritual markings, everything. She's been controlling him from the moment she arrived in the pack. The rejection, the cruelty, none of it was really him. Alara felt the world tilt beneath her feet. All this time, she'd believed Darius had betrayed her willingly, had chosen Kara of his own free will. But if Lyra was telling the truth, if he'd been spelled, she felt Ronan stiffen beside her, felt his hand grip her shoulder. When she looked up at him, she saw fear in his eyes. Fear of losing her. Even if that's true, Ronan said carefully, it doesn't change what happened. He hurt you. Nearly had you executed. But it wasn't his fault, Alara said slowly, her mind racing. If he was cursed, controlled, then he's a victim too. And if Kara's dark magic is what caused all this. She looked at Lyra. Can it be broken? Lyra nodded eagerly. Yes, but only by you. Your lunar magic is the only thing powerful enough to break Kara's curse. Darius is dying, Alara. Without your help, he'll be dead within days. Alara's heart twisted. Despite everything, despite the pain and humiliation, she couldn't let Darius die. Especially not if he'd been an innocent victim of dark magic all along. But when she looked at Ronan, she saw the fear in his eyes crystallize into something harder. He knew what she was considering. And he knew that if she left to help Darius, she might not come back. You can't go, Ronan said flatly. It's too dangerous. The shadow wolves are still hunting you. Leaving the kingdom's protection would be suicide. He'll die if I don't help him. Then let him die. The words were harsh, but Ronan's expression was desperate. I just got you back. 300 years I've waited, mourned, existed in a half-life without you. I can't lose you again. I won't. Ronan. If Darius was truly spelled, it's tragic. But it doesn't obligate you to risk your life for him. Ronan moved to stand between her and Lyra. This could be a trap. How do we know Kara didn't send Lyra here to lure you back? I would never, Lyra started, but Ronan cut her off with a growl. You tracked her here impossibly fast. You knew exactly where to find her. And now you're asking her to walk back into the territory where they tried to execute her. His eyes narrowed. Forgive me if I'm skeptical of your motives. The tension in the hall was suffocating. Alara felt torn between two impossible choices: stay with Ronan, safe but guilty, knowing she'd let Darius die. Or return to the Crescent Moon Pack, risk everything, possibly walk into a trap, but at least try to save an innocent man who'd been as much a victim as she was. I have to go, she said finally, and felt Ronan flinch as if she'd struck him. Not because I love him anymore. Not because I'm choosing him over you. But because it's the right thing to do. Because I have the power to help, and refusing to use it would make me no better than those who hurt me. And when the shadow wolves attack while you're unprotected? Ronan's voice was strained. When Kara turns her dark magic on you. What then? Then I'll fight. I have my power back now. I'm not helpless anymore. Elara took his hands, trying to make him understand. I know you're afraid. I'm afraid too. But I can't let fear control me. I can't let what happened to Elena dictate what happens to Elara. Ronan stared at her for a long moment, conflict raging in his silver eyes. Finally, he pulled her close, holding her so tightly it almost hurt. Promise me, he whispered against her hair. Promise me you'll come back. Promise me this isn't goodbye. I promise, Elara said, and meant it. I'll break the curse, save Darius if I can, and then I'll come home. To you. This is just something I have to do. Ronan pulled back, and she could see the effort it took for him to let her go. Then I'm coming with you. No. Your presence will only escalate things. An alpha won't take kindly to a Lycan king entering his territory. She cupped his face gently. Trust me. Trust that I know what I'm doing. It was asking for so much, asking him to trust after he'd lost her before, asking him to let her walk into danger, asking him to wait while she went to help another man. But slowly, painfully, Ronan nodded. If you're not back in 3 days, I'm coming for you, he said. And I won't be diplomatic about it. 3 days, Elara agreed. She kissed him one more time, pouring all her love and reassurance into it, trying to memorize the feel of his arms around her, the taste of his lips, the solid strength of him. Just in case. Then she turned to Lyra. Take me to him. They left within the hour, Lyra leading the way through the forest paths back toward Crescent Moon territory. As the Lycan kingdom disappeared behind them, Elara felt the mate bond stretch but not break. She could still feel Ronan, his worry and fear and reluctant acceptance thrumming through their connection. She sent her love back along that bond, a promise without words. I'll return. I'll come home. But as they traveled deeper into the forest, as familiar territory began to emerge around them, Elara couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Something felt wrong. Off. Lyra was walking too quickly, too confidently. Like she knew exactly where she was going. Like she'd made this journey before. Lyra, Elara said slowly. How did you really find me? Her friend glanced back, and for just a moment, Elara saw something in her eyes. Something cold. Something calculating. Then it was gone, replaced by concern and innocence. I told you. I tracked your scent. But Elara's newly awakened instincts were screaming warnings. She reached out with her lunar magic, letting it wash over Lyra, reading her aura. And what she saw made her blood run cold. Dark magic. Subtle, cleverly hidden, but unmistakable. Wrapped around Lyra like chains, guiding her actions, compelling her choices. You're spelled, Elara breathed. Lyra, you're under the same curse as Darius. Lyra's expression didn't change, but her hand went to the knife at her belt. I'm sorry, Elara. I really am. But I don't have a choice. She lunged forward, blade gleaming in the moonlight, and Elara barely had time to throw up a shield of lunar magic before the attack connected. The forest erupted into chaos. Wolves emerged from the shadows, not pack wolves, but rogues. Dozens of them, surrounding her, cutting off any escape. And at their head stood a figure Elara recognized from her recovered memories. A shadow wolf. Ancient, powerful, radiating dark magic. Hello, priestess, the creature purred. We've been waiting for you to leave your Lycan's protection. So kind of your pet to lure you out for us. Elara's heart sank as she understood. This had been a trap from the beginning. Lyra hadn't come to save her, she'd come to deliver her to the enemy. She raised her hands, lunar magic crackling around her fingers, preparing to fight. But even as power surged through her, even as she called upon everything Elena had been and everything Elara was becoming, she knew she was outnumbered. The shadow wolf smiled, showing too many teeth. Don't bother resisting. We don't want to kill you. Not yet. There are those who have waited a very long time to see you again. The rogues closed in, and despite her best efforts, despite the magic blazing from her hands, there were simply too many. Something heavy struck the back of her head, and darkness swallowed her whole. Her last thought, sent desperately along the mate bond to Ronan, was a single word. Trap. Then nothing. Dies continue when Alara's consciousness returned. The first thing she registered was pain, a dull, throbbing ache at the base of her skull. The second was the cold. She was lying on stone, frigid and unforgiving beneath her cheek. She opened her eyes slowly, carefully, taking stock of her surroundings without moving. She was in some kind of chamber, ancient and vast. The walls were carved with runes that pulsed with sickly green light, and the air itself felt thick with dark magic that made her skin crawl. Chains bound her wrists and ankles, etched with symbols that dampened her lunar magic. She could feel her power still there, humming beneath her skin, but it was muted, unreachable, like trying to grasp water with closed fists. She's awake. Alara's eyes snapped to the voice. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that gleamed amber in the dim light. There was something familiar about him, something that tugged at memory, but she couldn't place it. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice hoarse. "Where am I?" "Where you've always belonged," the man said, moving closer. "In the place where your story truly began. Welcome home, priestess." As he stepped fully into the light, Alara finally saw his face clearly. The recognition hit her like a physical blow. "Lucian," she whispered. Lyra's older brother. The one who had supposedly been killed by rogues years ago, when his father died under mysterious circumstances. But he wasn't dead. He was standing right in front of her, very much alive and radiating power that made her lunar magic recoil. "You remember me," Lucian said with a cold smile. "I'm flattered. Though I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. You always did have a good memory, even as a child. Everyone thought you were dead. Everyone was meant to think that." He circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "It made things easier. Allowed me to work in the shadows, to build my power, to plan my revenge without interference." "Revenge for what?" "For everything." His voice turned sharp, bitter. "For my father. For my birthright. For the injustice that stole everything from me." Alara's mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. "Your father. He was supposed to be Alpha. Before Darius's father took power. Before Darius's father murdered him, you mean?" Lucian's hands clenched into fists. "My father was the rightful heir. Strong, respected, beloved by the pack. But the night before the ceremony where he would be officially named Alpha, he died. Poisoned. And somehow, conveniently, Darius's father was chosen to lead instead." "You think Darius's father killed yours?" "I know he did." Lucian's eyes blazed with hatred. "And I know your father helped him." The accusation made Alara's breath catch. "What?" "No. My father was the pack's general. He was loyal, honorable. Your father was the one who discovered my father's body. He was the one who declared it an unfortunate accident, a sudden illness." Lucian leaned close, his face inches from hers. "But I found evidence. Letters. Plans. Proof that your father and Darius's father conspired together to eliminate the threat my father posed." Alara wanted to deny it, to insist he was lying. But fragments of memory were stirring, things she'd overheard as a child, conversations that had stopped abruptly when she entered a room, the way her father had always seemed troubled around the anniversary of the old Alpha's death. "Even if that's true," she said carefully, "why come after me? Why kill my family? They had nothing to do with what happened back then. Didn't they?" Lucian straightened, his expression cold. "Your father profited from his betrayal. Rose in rank, gained power, lived comfortably while Lyra and I were left with nothing. And when I finally had the evidence to expose him, when I was ready to bring the truth to light, your family had to be eliminated." Horror washed over Alara as understanding crystallized. "You killed them. You killed my parents." "The rogues killed your parents," Lucian corrected. "I simply directed them." just as I directed everything else. Kara's arrival in the pack. The curse on Darius. The spell that made him reject you. All of it, carefully orchestrated to bring us to this moment. Ilara's world was tilting, every truth she'd believed being ripped apart. Why? If you wanted revenge on Darius's father, he's been dead for years. Why continue this? Because revenge isn't enough. Lucian's shout echoed through the chamber. I don't just want to punish those who wronged my family. I want what was stolen from us. The alpha position. The power. The respect. He grabbed her chin roughly, forcing her to meet his gaze. And you, priestess, are the key to getting it. I don't understand. Of course you don't. You never understood your own value, did you? He released her, resuming his pacing. When Lyra first brought you to live with us after your parents died, I was planning to kill you too. Finish what the rogue started. But then I sensed it, the power sleeping inside you. Lunar magic, dormant but immense. And I realized you could be useful. Lyra. Ilara's heart clenched. She knew? All this time. Lyra has been my loyal sister in all things, Lucian confirmed. She befriended you, earned your trust, kept you close so we could monitor you. We knew that one day, your power would awaken. We just had to be patient. Ilara thought back over all the years of friendship, all the moments she'd shared with Lyra, all the times she'd trusted her completely. Had any of it been real? Or had it all been a lie, a manipulation to keep her close? Why didn't you just take my power when I was living with you? She asked. Why wait? Because your mother, clever woman that she was, had placed a protection spell on you before she died. A veil that made it impossible for us to access your magic directly. Lucian's smile was cruel. We needed you to break that protection yourself. Needed you to willingly sacrifice your wolf, to experience trauma and loss. Only then would the veil shatter and your true power emerge. The sacrifice I made for Darius. Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. That wasn't chance. You planned that too. I brought Kara to the pack specifically to curse Darius. I knew your foolish love for him would drive you to sacrifice everything to save him. And it worked perfectly. You gave up your wolf, lost your child, shattered the protective veil your mother had woven. He laughed, a sound devoid of humor. You did exactly what we needed you to do. Rage burned through Ilara's chest, hot and fierce. Every loss, every pain, every moment of suffering, all of it had been orchestrated by the people she'd trusted most. Lyra helped me escape the dungeon. She warned me about the execution. Because I told her to, Lucian said impatiently. We needed you to flee to the Lycan king. Needed your memories as Elena to awaken. Needed your full power to emerge. The shadow wolves attacking the Lycan kingdom, Lyra's convenient arrival with news of Darius's curse, all part of the plan to draw you out of Ronan's protection and bring you here. Here, Ilara repeated, looking around the ancient chamber with new eyes. Where are we? The Temple of Shadows. The place where the first shadow wolves were created, where dark magic and lunar magic first collided. Lucian's eyes gleamed with fanatic fervor. And where I will finally claim what should have been mine all along. He gestured, and two figures emerged from the darkness. Ilara's stomach dropped as she recognized them, Lyra, her expression carefully blank, and behind her, someone else. Kara. But not the Kara she remembered from the Crescent Moon pack. This woman radiated dark power, her eyes glowing with unnatural light, her form seeming to shift and waver like smoke. Hello again, little wolf, Kara purred, her voice layered with something inhuman. Or should I say, little priestess? You've caused me quite a bit of trouble, you know. 300 years I've waited for another chance at you. Ilara's blood turned to ice. You were there. When Elena died, you were one of the shadow wolves. I was their leader, Kara corrected, preening with pride. The one who struck the killing blow, who tore out your heart and watched your Lycan king weep over your corpse. It was glorious. But Ronan destroyed the shadow wolves. He hunted them all down. He destroyed their bodies, Kara agreed. But I'm not just a body, priestess. I'm a spirit, a consciousness woven from dark magic itself. I survived by binding myself to the shadows, waiting dormant until I could find a suitable host. She gestured to her current form. This body belonged to a foolish girl who wanted power. I gave her what she wanted, and in return, I got a second chance at revenge. Lucian moved to stand beside Kara, and Alara saw the dark connection between them, threads of shadow binding them together, feeding power back and forth. Kara approached me years ago with an offer. Help her get revenge on you and your Lycan, and in return, she'd help me reclaim my father's throne. It was a bargain neither of us could refuse. So what now? Alara asked, trying to keep the fear from her voice. You have me trapped. What do you want? Lucian and Kara exchanged a look, and Alara saw something pass between them: anticipation, hunger, cruel satisfaction. We want you to choose, Lucian said finally. Become my mate willingly. Let me bond with you and access your lunar magic. Help me open the shadow veil and unleash an army of darkness upon those who wronged my family. Do this, and I'll let you live. You'll stand beside me as I take my rightful place as Alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack and beyond. And if I refuse? Kara's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we'll tear your unborn child from your womb, drain its power, and use that to open the veil instead. And you'll die slowly, painfully, knowing that your death accomplished nothing except giving us what we wanted anyway. Alara's hands instinctively moved to her stomach, protective even though she couldn't feel any difference yet. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Ronan's child. The life they'd created together when they'd sealed their mate bond. And these monsters wanted to kill it, to use its innocent power for dark purposes. I'll never help you, she said, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. I'll die before I let you hurt my child or open that veil. Oh, you'll die either way, Kara said cheerfully. The question is whether you die quickly or very, very slowly. And whether your child dies with you or gets to be useful first. Lucian stepped forward, his hand outstretched. Last chance, Alara. Join me willingly, or we take what we need by force. Alara looked at that hand, at the man who had orchestrated every tragedy in her life, who had murdered her family and manipulated her for years. She thought of her parents, her lost child with Darius, all the pain and suffering that had brought her to this moment. And she thought of Ronan, of the mate bond thrumming weakly through the chains that bound her magic, of his fear when she'd left, of his desperate plea for her to come back to him. She'd promised she would return. She'd promised this wasn't goodbye. She intended to keep that promise. Go to hell, Alara spat. Lucian's expression darkened. So be it. Lyra, prepare the ritual. Kara, gather the components. If she won't give us her power willingly, we'll rip it from her screaming. They moved with practiced efficiency, clearly having planned this moment for a long time. Lyra began drawing symbols on the floor around Alara's chains, her movements mechanical, her face still blank. Kara produced a ceremonial knife, its blade etched with runes that made Alara's magic recoil in horror. This is going to hurt, Kara said conversationally, testing the blade's edge. A lot. But try to stay conscious as long as possible. The ritual works better if you're aware of what we're taking from you. Alara closed her eyes, reaching desperately for her magic. The chains dampened it, made it nearly impossible to access, but she had to try. Had to fight. Had to. The mate bond. It was faint, stretched thin by distance and the dark magic suppressing her, but it was still there. Still connecting her to Ronan across the miles that separated them. Alara poured everything she had into that bond, every ounce of will, every desperate plea for help. She didn't know if he could feel it, didn't know if he would understand or arrive in time. But she had to try. Ronan, she sent along the bond, her mental voice screaming with urgency. Ronan, I need you. Please. Find me. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, faint but unmistakable, she felt his response, a surge of recognition, of fury, of absolute determination. Hold on, his voice echoed in her mind. I'm coming. Hold on, my love. I'm coming. Kara raised the knife, its edge gleaming in the sickly green light of the runes. Any last words, priestess? Alara opened her eyes, and despite her fear, despite the chains and the pain and the certainty of what was about to happen, she smiled. Yes, you should have killed me faster. Because in the distance, getting closer by the second. She could feel him. Ronan, racing toward her with all the speed and fury of a Lycan king who would tear apart anyone who threatened his mate. And behind him, to her shock, she felt another presence. Familiar, conflicted, but blazing with determination. Darius. Somehow, impossibly, her former mate was coming too. Kara must have seen something in Alara's expression because her eyes narrowed. What? The temple wall exploded inward. Stone and dust filled the air as a massive black Lycan burst through, his roar shaking the ancient foundations. Ronan had arrived, and he was magnificent and terrifying, his silver eyes locked onto Alara with single-minded focus. The rogues that had been stationed as guards rushed to intercept him, but Ronan tore through them like they were made of paper. Blood sprayed, bodies fell, and nothing slowed his advance toward Alara. Lucian shouted orders, dark magic crackling from his hands as he tried to stop the Lycan king's assault. Kara moved to join him, abandoning Alara for the moment to face this new threat. And through the hole Ronan had created, another figure entered, Darius, in his wolf form, his eyes clear and focused in a way Alara hadn't seen since before the curse. He tackled one of the shadow wolves that lunged for Ronan's blind side, and the two former enemies fought back-to-back against the dark forces surrounding them. No! Lucian screamed, fury and disbelief warring on his face. How did they find us? The temple is hidden, warded. Love finds a way, Alara said quietly, and meant it. The mate bond had guided Ronan to her, and somehow, impossibly, Darius had followed. Ronan fought his way to her side, shifting back to human form long enough to examine her chains. His hands shook as they ghosted over her face, checking for injuries, his eyes wild with fear and rage. I told you 3 days, he said roughly. You've been gone 6 hours and I find you chained in a death ritual. Next time, priestess, you listen when I say something is dangerous. Despite everything, Alara laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. Next time, I'll take you with me. Damn right you will. Ronan's hands found the chains, and his Lycan strength snapped them like thread. The moment they broke, Alara's magic surged back, flooding through her veins like liquid moonlight. She stood, power crackling around her, and for the first time since awakening in this nightmare, she felt like herself again. Like Elena and Alara combined, like past and present merged into something greater than either had been alone. Lucian and Kara had rallied the remaining shadow wolves, forming a defensive line between them and the exit. Dark magic swirled through the air, thick and choking, making it hard to breathe. You can't win, Lucian snarled. There are too many of us and this is our ground. The temple amplifies dark magic. Your lunar power is weakened here. Maybe, Alara agreed, stepping forward to stand beside Ronan. But I'm not alone anymore. And that makes all the difference. She raised her hands, lunar magic blazing silver-white, and felt Ronan's power rise to meet hers. Wolf and Lycan, light and strength, combining into something more powerful than either could achieve separately. Darius howled, his voice joining theirs, and though his power was different, alpha strength rather than Lycan might, it added to their combined force. The battle that followed was chaos and carnage. Shadow wolves fell before Ronan's claws and Darius's fangs. Dark magic clashed against lunar light, making the temple shake. Lucian fought with desperate fury, knowing this was his last chance at the revenge he'd craved for so long. And Kara. Kara was in her element. She moved like smoke, her spiritual form allowing her to dodge physical attacks, her dark magic powerful enough to match Alara's lunar light. You can't purify me, Kara taunted, her form shifting and writhing. I'm not flesh and blood anymore. I'm shadow-given form. I'm eternal. But Alara remembered something from Elena's memories. A technique, dangerous and draining, that could purify even spiritual corruption. It required channeling pure lunar magic directly into the corrupted soul, burning away darkness with light. It also required physical contact with the spirit being purified, which meant getting close enough for Kara to attack. Ronan, Alara said quietly. I need you to trust me. He was beside her instantly, reading the determination in her eyes. What are you planning? Something stupid and dangerous. Of course you are. He cupped her face, fierce and tender all at once. Do what you need to do. I'll keep you safe. Alara nodded, then turned her attention to Kara. You want me? Come get me. She lowered her defenses, making herself vulnerable, and Kara's eyes lit up with savage glee. The shadow spirit lunged forward, her form solidifying into something tangible as she reached for Alara's heart, intending to tear it out just as she'd done 300 years ago. But Alara was ready. The moment Kara's hand touched her chest, Alara grabbed her wrist and held on. Lunar magic exploded from her hands, pure and blazing, pouring into Kara's spiritual form like sunlight into darkness. Kara screamed, trying to pull away, but Alara's grip was iron. Power flowed between them, dark meeting light, corruption meeting purity, shadow meeting moon. Alara could feel Kara's essence, could see the woman she'd been before dark magic had consumed her. A wolf who'd wanted power, who'd made terrible choices, who'd let herself be twisted into something monstrous. I'm sorry, Alara whispered, and meant it. I'm sorry for what you became. But I can't let you hurt anyone else. The lunar magic intensified, burning brighter, hotter, until Kara's form began to dissolve. Not destroyed, purified. The darkness that had sustained her for centuries was being burned away, and with it, her consciousness was fading. No, Kara gasped, her voice growing faint. No, this isn't. I was supposed to, 300 years. Rest now, Alara said gently. Be at peace. With a final pulse of lunar light, Kara's form dissipated completely. No darkness remained, no corrupted spirit, only pure energy that dispersed harmlessly into the air. The shadow wolves that remained, sensing their master's destruction, began to flee. Lucian tried to stop them, to rally them for one final stand, but they wouldn't listen. Without Kara's power binding them, they wanted no part of this battle, which left Lucian alone, facing Ronan, Darius, and Alara. It's over, Alara said, exhaustion creeping into her voice. The purification ritual had drained her more than she'd expected. Your allies are gone. Your plan has failed. Surrender. But Lucian's eyes were wild, manic. He'd lost everything, his revenge, his power. His sister's loyalty was questionable at best now that the spell binding her was weakening. He had nothing left to lose. If I can't have my revenge, he snarled, dark magic gathering around him in a final, desperate surge, then I'll make sure none of you survive either. He raised his hands, preparing to unleash everything he had in one catastrophic blast that would bring the entire temple down on top of them. But before he could release it, a figure tackled him from the side. Darius. The two men tumbled toward the portal that Lucian had been planning to use to open the shadow veil. Dark energy swirled around the opening, unstable and dangerous. If anyone fell through, they'd be lost in the space between realms, trapped for eternity. Darius, no. Alara screamed, running toward them. But Darius looked back at her, and his eyes were clear, sane, filled with regret and determination. I'm sorry, he said, his voice carrying despite the chaos. For everything. For hurting you, for not being strong enough to fight the curse, for failing you when you needed me most. That wasn't your fault, Alara said desperately, reaching for him even though she was too far away. You were spelled. None of it was your choice. Maybe not. But this is. Darius tightened his grip on Lucian, who was struggling frantically, trying to break free. You deserve to be happy, Alara. You deserve a mate who will protect you, honor you, never let you doubt your worth. I couldn't be that for you. But he can. His eyes flicked to Ronan briefly. Take care of her. And take care of that child. Be the father and mate I could never be. Darius, don't. But he'd already made his choice. With a final surge of alpha strength, Darius threw himself and Lucian through the portal. Their screams echoed briefly as dark energy swallowed them, and then the portal collapsed, sealing itself, trapping them in the void between realms. Silence fell over the temple, broken only by Alara's ragged breathing and quiet sobs. She'd hated Darius for what he'd done to her. Had been so angry, so hurt, so betrayed. But he'd been a victim too, manipulated and controlled, and in the end, He'd sacrificed himself to save her. Ronan pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried for the man who could have been her mate, should have been her happiness, but had been stolen from her by dark magic and cruel fate. He made his choice, Ronan murmured against her hair. He chose to give you the future he couldn't. Honor that choice by living it fully. Elara nodded against his chest, knowing he was right but still grieving the waste of it all. A soft sound made them both turn. Lyra stood nearby, tears streaming down her face, the blank expression finally gone. The spell that had bound her had broken when Kara was purified, leaving her fully aware of everything she'd done. "I'm so sorry," Lyra whispered, her voice shattered. "Oh gods, Elara, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to, he made me, I couldn't stop." Elara looked at her former best friend, at the girl who had been like a sister to her for so many years. Part of her wanted to rage, to scream, to make Lyra hurt the way she'd been hurt. But she could see the truth in Lyra's eyes, the horror, the guilt, the genuine remorse of someone waking from a nightmare only to discover they'd committed atrocities while trapped in it. "How long?" Elara asked quietly. "How long were you under his control?" "Since I was 14, Lyra said, her voice breaking. "After our father died, Lucian, he changed. The grief twisted him into something dark. He found books on shadow magic, made deals with creatures I didn't understand. And when I tried to stop him, tried to leave, he bound me with a spell. Made me his puppet." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was aware the whole time. Watching myself hurt you, betray you, knowing what was happening but unable to stop it. It was torture." Ronan growled low in his chest, protective and suspicious. "How do we know you're telling the truth? That this isn't another manipulation?" "You don't," Lyra admitted. She slowly, carefully, lowered herself to her knees before Elara, her head bowed in submission. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. Everything I did, spell or no spell, I still did. Your family is dead because of me. You suffered because of me. If you want justice, if you want revenge, I'll accept it. Kill me if you need to. I won't fight back." Elara stared down at her, feeling the weight of that offer. It would be easy to accept. To let Ronan tear Lyra apart, to watch her pay for every betrayal, every lie, every moment of suffering. But she was so tired of death. So tired of revenge and hatred and the endless cycle of pain begetting more pain. "Get up," Elara said finally. Lyra raised her head, confusion and hope warring in her expression. "I said get up." Elara's voice was firm but not cruel. "I won't kill you, Lyra. You were a victim too, controlled by your brother's darkness. But I also can't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Too much has happened, too much has been lost." "I understand," Lyra whispered. "You'll return to the Crescent Moon Pack," Elara continued. "You'll tell them everything about Lucian, about Kara, about the conspiracy. You'll help them rebuild from the damage your brother caused. And you'll live with what you've done, carry that weight, and maybe, in time, find a way to atone for it. And if the pack wants me executed for treason, then that's their justice to deliver, not mine." Elara's expression softened slightly. "But I'll send word to the pack, explain that you were enslaved by dark magic. What they do with that information is up to them." Lyra stood slowly, her movements careful, like she was afraid any sudden gesture might make Elara change her mind. "Thank you. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. Don't thank me yet. Living with your choices might be harder than dying for them." Elara turned away, leaning into Ronan's solid presence. "Now go. I can't look at you right now." Lyra nodded and left without another word, her footsteps echoing through the damaged temple until they faded into silence. "You were merciful," Ronan observed, though his tone suggested he might have chosen differently. "I was tired," Elara corrected. "Tired of death and revenge. Lucian let his need for vengeance consume him until it destroyed everything he touched. I won't become that. I won't let darkness win by making me dark too." Ronan pressed a kiss to her temple. "You're stronger than me. I wanted to tear her apart for what she helped do to you. I know. But that's why we balance each other." She placed her hand over her stomach, thinking of the life growing there. "Besides, we have more important things to focus on than revenge. We're going to be parents. The reminder seemed to drain the remaining tension from Ronan's frame. He placed his hand over hers, his touch reverent. A child. After 300 years alone, the goddess gives me back my mate and grants us a child. His voice roughened with emotion. I don't deserve such mercy. We both deserve happiness, Alara said firmly. After everything we've survived, everything we've lost, we deserve our chance at peace. They stood there for a moment, holding each other in the ruins of the temple, both thinking of the sacrifices made to get them to this point. Darius's final act of redemption. Elena's death 3 centuries ago. All the pain and loss that had paved the road to this second chance. Let's go home, Ronan said finally. Away from this place of death and dark magic. Back to our kingdom, where we can start building the future Darius wanted us to have. Alara nodded, and together they picked their way through the rubble and bodies, leaving the Temple of Shadows behind them. As they emerged into the forest, Alara took one last look back at the place where she'd nearly lost everything. It's over, she said, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. Finally, it's over. I want to say thank you for listening to this beautiful story. I'm Grace Mira, and every story you hear here is written by me, with the voices and images brought to life using AI. If you enjoyed this one, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps me create more lovely stories for you.